Hey everybody, welcome to Moment of Clarity. Thanks for joining me. Please take a second to share this. If you can, share it, let people know to join. If you're in Texas right now, I am sorry to hear that. I mean, I'm always sorry to hear that you're in Texas, but right now, obviously, it's a very tough time. I hope that everybody's doing all right out there. I do know that many people watch this show and watch my show in Texas. I've done many great tours there, and obviously, I hope you're all doing okay and not having trouble surviving, which is what it's getting to. Hi, Danielle. You're watching from Austin. Do you have your power? Maybe you can let us know if your power has gone out or not. I want to talk about some of what's going on in Texas right now, because there are tons of lies circulating, mainly put forward by the conservative, conservative, right? By the garbage media, by the right-wing media. I want to get into that mainly, but I also wanted to let you know that all of the donations today at the Super Chat on YouTube will be going to mutual aid in Texas to help them get the needs that they need. The needs they need. I wonder why they named them needs. Is it because they need them? To help them get what they need. Mutual aid does a lot of things, but the donations will be going to the mutual aids in Texas. As I've said often, many of these episodes, I donate the super chats to mutual aids at various places in the country, various cities, and I figured this is a good week to make it Texas because they need it a lot. Something else I wanted to let you know up top. Thank you, Mr. Boston, for the donation. Something I'll let you know up top is there is a document that's been circulating with a lot of information for people in Texas about mutual aid in Texas. Mutual aid, as many of you already know, is it's organizations that have been created by citizens. These are non-governmental organizations. They do not work with the thank you nays. They do not work with the government or the cops or anything like that. They don't ask whether you're a citizen. They don't ask, did you come from the same part of town as I do? Otherwise, fuck you. It's not like that. So they do a lot of great work. And anyway, let's see if I can share this screen. The place to find this doc that has all kinds of resources in it is one place is my Twitter. So if you're in Texas and you want to look at this doc, you can go to my Twitter. Right now, it's at the top of my Twitter. So as you can see right there, and that has the link to it because the link is like a Google Doc garbage link. Otherwise, I'd tell you what it is, but it's too long to read. So yeah, you can go there and click on that to get that doc, which has all kinds of information. And so yeah, let's move on to what's going on there down in Texas. Now, many of you, maybe some of you in other countries don't know about this story, but in Texas, the water has gone out. Sorry, I read someone's comment about the water. The power has gone out, causing many people's water to go bad as well. But the power has gone out because Texas is facing a as they say, unseasonably cold period. But of course, now with climate change, we know that unseasonably cold means nothing. They are facing, a blizzard, a deep freeze, the likes of which they haven't seen in many years or they rarely see. Yes, this is connected to climate change, climate chaos. As many people know, the right-wing media may want to tell you, see, I told you there's no climate change. Right now, it's cold in Texas. But anybody with half a brain who's read anything about this knows that climate change is causing climate chaos. It is causing a shifting of the environments, a shifting of the seasons. Right now, this is air from Alaska. That is because the climate is disrupted. You have this air from Alaska is, as Mark Sumner calls it in his Twitter rant, which I'm going to get to in a second, because he knows a lot more about Texas and the Texas power companies than I do. He calls it wobbling. Right now, the cold air is wobbling, and it then hits areas that are not used to it. So anyway, long story short, yes, This is climate change related. Texas is very cold. What do people in Texas do when they're very cold? They crank up their heaters to a level that is rarely ever seen because Texas doesn't normally need heaters very much, or not as much as many areas. So they cranked up all their heaters. Their electric company was basically collapsing. Many people are still without power. Many people don't have clean water because they don't have power. So a lot of people are suffering and they don't know how to deal with it. There's a lot to talk about here as our societies, our societal systems collapse under climate change, but also under the greed of unfettered capitalism. And really there's no need for the adjective, the greed under capitalism. And yes, this is connected to that. The right wing doesn't want to tell you that it's connected. They'd rather you don't know that it's connected, but it is connected to that. So I want to go over to a thread by Mark Sumner. He is an editor at Daily Kos, which don't hold that against him. Daily Kos is often a lot of liberal bullshit, but anyway, I wanted to show this thread to you. I'm not going to read. The thread is 24 tweets long, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you can go read it yourself if you want to get more details on this. But he talks about how wind power is not failing in Texas. And that's what the right wing has been telling you. If you watch Tucker Carlson or any of these garbage right wing outlets, they want you to believe that this has been caused by wind power. Texas is struggling right now because the wind power couldn't handle the cold breeze, and it's cold and windy, and wind power sucks. So there's all this wind chaos going on. No, this is not the fault of wind power. This is actually the fault of fossil fuels. And so they're trying to blame it on wind power. By the way, wind power, even if it were, quote unquote, the fault of wind power amounts to 15% of Texas's electricity in their grid. So even if wind power were failing, that still would only be 15% of their electricity. So that's horseshit. But there's more reason as to why the electricity is failing in Texas right now. And that is that it's the part of the system, as Mark Sumner says, it's part of the system that is actually working better than designed. It's actually doing quite well. So he says the record cold comes from climate change, destabilized systems that normally spin cold air around the North Pole. Now that the system wobbles like a spinning top in the last unsteady stages before collapse, this week the wobble is tilted towards the central U.S. Wind is not the problem. As Ars Technica pointed out on Monday, wind in Texas is currently working at over 100% of its projected capacity. The real problem is Texas's electrical grid is working exactly as designed because the profits are better this way. Texas has an odd grid that goes back to the World War II, where Texas created a Texas-only utilities system. And it's called ERCOT, took charge and began tinkering with the formula to incentivize utilities. ERCOT, I mean, it gets kind of in the weeds here, but ERCOT created a system where prices can float based on momentary spikes in demand. And then they're insured against spikes that are too high, and et cetera, et cetera. To me, it sounds a lot like the stock market, where they try and make it as confusing as possible so that people don't realize they're getting fucked. That's what this system sounds like. But, and this is kind of just a funny little extra fact. In the ERCOT market, sometimes the insurance that they get is worth it. On Monday, electricity in Texas approached a rate that would make the average home monthly bill $96,000. So you can tell their electric system is set up great. Let's see. So He says, if any of this rings a little bell in the back of your head, meaning purposely constrained market, free-floating prices, subject to wild changes, consumers facing blackouts, it probably rings a bell in your head because Enron got its start dabbling in these markets in Houston in the 1980s. You remember Enron, right? One of the largest corporate collapses we've seen. Spectacular collapse of a corporation that basically was just screwing everybody based on the electric markets and electricity markets. And so Texas is now facing the collapse of a badly overloaded system, leading to extended outages simply because that's the way the system is designed to work. The incentive in Texas is to provide for exactly as much power as needed and not a single bit more, because that's not how they make the most money. Let's see. So, and why does Texas have 15% wind energy? Not because they are just so green, or they just love helping the planet, or Texas really cares about people and life and sustainability. No, they went to wind power because wind power was much more affordable. He goes on to say that right now, wind power, even if a coal burning plant were fully built and operational and was gifted to someone already complete, it would still cost more to produce than wind power right now. So as Fox News was claiming there were frozen turbines, this is not true. This is garbage put forward by the fossil fuel lobby. Part of the issue comes down to the other item at the top of Texas' power mix, natural gas. In cold weather, natural gas is in demand because it can be used directly from home heating. That's not just driving up the price of gas, but also limiting its availability. So the system pipelines that carry the gas around are also built to match a certain level of demand. Pipelines are expensive. Companies don't build them just in case. They don't build them for backup. They build the amount they need. Texas's coal plants are also underperforming. So as you can see, this is not the fault of wind power or the fault of green energy. This is the fault of an electric system that was built to profits by having precisely the amount of capacity for the market. And when that capacity becomes completely unexpected, when the need becomes completely unexpected, their systems can't fucking handle it because there was no incentive. See, we're getting to the profit incentive. Do you see how this works? There was no incentive for them to spend a lot of money preparing for these moments. And if you had a good and functional government, a group of people coming together and saying, this is how we want our society run, then guess what? You would have a system that is ready for a crisis. But we don't have that kind of government. We have a capitalist government, a government owned and operated by vulture capitalists who their goal is just to make as much money as possible, not to prepare society for a crisis, not to be ready in the time when shit goes down, not to be there for you, to help average citizens. That is not their goal. That's not their aim. There is no thought in their brain about that moment. The only time that moment comes into play in the vulture capitalist ruling elite is when the crisis hits and they think, this might look bad for us. This might get us in trouble. And then they'll run around and try and solve things here and there so that they can continue their exploitative pursuits. That is the only time they consider this. So right now, you're going to hear a bunch of bullshit from our politicians about how they're trying to help you. And most of it's garbage. They don't really want to help you, except they want you not to rise up with pitchforks. So in that regard, it's in their benefit to help you. But this never should have gotten this way. Many people have died in Texas right now. And many people are suffering. And it never should have gotten to this point if we had a functioning society. But we are in the late stages of a collapsing empire. And moments like these demonstrate how it works. They can't deal with a crisis. And what do they do for themselves personally in a crisis? For them and their own family, their own people that they actually do care about, as opposed to caring about the society as a whole? What do they do with them? Well, Ted Cruz showed us what they do. They fly to Cancun. Ted Cruz, as most of you probably know, because it's become a viral story this week, Ted Cruz flew to Cancun from Texas, from his house in Texas. He is a Texas senator, for those of you in other countries. He is one of the biggest right-wing shitbag shitsters. I was reading a thesaurus this morning. He's one of the worst, and he's a Texas senator. And when the shit went down and hit the fan. So it was coming and going. The shit went down and it hit the fan. When this all happened, and he claims he lost power in his house, he was spotted on a flight to Cancun with his kids. So now that it's become a viral story, he claims he was just helping his kids get to Cancun. And now he's coming back to help the good people of Texas. Can you imagine being so fucking out of touch and pathetic and fucking lunatic that that you flee your collapsing state in its time of need so that you can go to a nice warm place with pristine beaches at what I can assure you is a very expensive resort, wherever the fuck Ted Cruz was taking his family. You flee down there, and then when you realize it might hurt your political aims, it might hurt your next run for office, you say, no, I was just flying to Cancun to help my kids get there. Now I'm coming back to fight with the good people of Texas, to demand a better scenario, a better government, a better situation, to demand we get the help we need. I'm coming right back. Even though I and the government I support in Texas are the ones who created this situation. Make no mistake, Ted Cruz may not have actively made the electricity decisions, but he is a very powerful person in Texas, and I guarantee you he's had dinners with probably the heads of these electric companies, the head of ERCOT. I promise you, at some point has written a nice juicy check to Ted Cruz. Now, I'm not saying ERCOT didn't also write a check to whoever was running against Ted Cruz. That's how they do it. That's how they own both sides of our truthfully one-party system. They write big checks to both sides. Then whoever gets into office, they go, hey, remember that big check we wrote you? And the person goes, why, yes, I do. Anyway, Ted Cruz was really just like a walking human example of our system as the I don't know, the systems, but the people that are supposed to be there in a crisis, the agencies that are supposed to show up and help people when this type of situation occurs are not there, and they're not able to help people. And our system will see these crises more and more as we're noticing, right? As we're watching. California was on fire this summer and the past several summers, but it gets worse every summer, to the point where you just have whole towns going up in flames. And where are the systems that are supposed to save us or help us? They're not there. They're not prepared, because the part of the government that is meant to help people has been gutted. It is empty. It's an empty shell of itself, because the people running the government, their goal is 100% just profit and how to benefit them and their friends. So they might still have the agencies, they still exist, but they're not actually worried about how to make them the best they can be. And so, I mean, this is, look, you can shrink it down to a couple of sentences. Our economic system is capitalism. Capitalism seeks profit over all else. There is no thought towards the environment, the long-term health, the people as a whole, just profit, just money. And so when stuff gets bad, which it will, because you get immense inequality and people are suffering and struggling. 1 out of every 3 families has said that they had trouble paying their bills in the past month. When shit gets bad, the systems that are supposed to be there to help people are not there, because the motivation at the core of it all, of our socioeconomic system, is not helping others. It is greed. It is money. It is profit. Now, it's not, I mean, to me, this is just yet another example of how this system works. We saw it in California. We saw it in the Bahamas, right, with that catastrophe there. We saw it in Puerto Rico with the hurricanes there. We saw it in Louisiana. Just again and again, as these places face a crisis after crisis due to climate change, our systems are not there to help people. And so, I don't want to just be negative. We have to turn to each other. We have to turn to our communities, and we have to do the work of rebuilding the community agencies and groups and organizations that are supposed to be there for you. We have to do that work. There's people far better to speak about this than me, but that's why I have that doc for the mutual aid organizations in Texas, which I just showed you is at the top of my Twitter account. It's also in the description. And all the donations from this episode at the super chat at youtube.com/moment of clarity. All those donations are going to mutual aid in Texas. But we have to do the work to rebuild these community systems. But we have a culture that has told us that's not really important. We have a culture that has atomized us and, separated us into tiny little seclusion boxes called apartments or houses. And, don't get me wrong. I live in this system too. So I live in an apartment. I'm not like saying I do a great job of befriending all my neighbors, but this is a bit of a therapy session for me too, right? To sit here and talk with you guys and say, look, here's what we need to do. And I need to work on it too. I'm not coming to you to just lecture you on how I do everything perfect. Fuck no. I'm in this shitstorm too. I'm in the fucking swamp of Washington, D.C. But this type of thing is going to hit anybody who thinks they're immune to this is not really. This is going to hit more and more cities. If you haven't faced some sort of climate change catastrophe, it's not far off. And we need to work to both deal with these things, but also, of course, to deal with climate change by getting fucking off of fossil fuels. I mean, they are collapsing. Those corporations are collapsing. They're struggling more and more every day. They have far less power than they used to. You can actually see the mainstream media even. Oh my God, the mainstream media even will do an occasional report or an occasional article on how fucking pathetic Exxon or BP or Shell or all these places are. And that's a big step, is to start, I feel like if you were to ask your average American, they would understand there's a problem with fossil fuels, which is heading in the right direction. Far too slowly, don't get me wrong. We've already walked off the cliff, and now as we're falling, the New York Times has just published an article on how falling's not good for you. So it's a little late, but the New York Times just published an article on how to watch out for cliffs while you're walking. Oh shit, little late. But I do think we can keep rebuilding these systems. We can imagine a different world. We can have these discussions. As I've said before, we view capitalism as a religion, and you can't question it. And I view this as positive. What we're doing right now, my discussion with you is positive, because at least the discussion is being had. At least people are talking about this now. If we live in a socioeconomic system that is killing us, and we can't even talk about how it's killing us, then we're double fucked. Step one is to talk about how it's killing us. Step two is really doing a lot about it. But if we can't even get to step one, we're really in trouble. And if you flip on any of your mainstream media right now, you will never see that discussion because they can't have it. They can't even talk about how we're fucked. And if you can't even talk about how we're fucked, then how the shit hell are we going to fix it? Explain that to me. If you can't even have a debate about how and why we're fucked, then how are you ever going to fix it? You're not. But yeah, the Ted Cruz thing is just, he's demonstrating what all of these rich power elites believe they can do. They believe, and to some degree correctly, that they can fly to Cancun when shit gets bad. That they can, most of them have multiple, many houses. They can go to the territory that is safest or best off. And this is kind of just the perfect example of Ted Cruz being like, wow, it's cold. Our power's going out. I'll be on a beach in Cancun and my family will too. And this shows why they're not that concerned. Yet another reason as to why they're not that concerned. One, they're not that concerned about climate change because it's bad for them financially. It's bad for their interests to consider climate change or do anything about it. Another reason they don't care is because even though it's going to hit them and their houses and their cities, they're going to fly away. So they know they can escape. Ted Cruz is coming back because it started looking bad for him to escape, but they know they can escape. And so yet again, you see how little their interests align with average Americans. Their interests do not align. What they want and what you want are completely different things. And this is what happens when you have an oligarchy, when you have a rule by a very rich business class. They don't understand or care about the needs of the average American. And, there's a lot of ways to solve this. You could get money out of politics, but let's be honest, in a capitalist system, the capital will always retake the government. You might, if tomorrow they wrote a bill saying no more corporate donations, no more big money donations, you can only donate $4 to any candidate and it's all publicly funded or whatever, you could do all of that and it would be great. And it would have a significant impact on many of the things being passed in our government. But over time, and maybe it'd just be 10 years, maybe be 20, over time, capital would still rule the day. They may lose the battle, but they'd win the war. So to get out of this oligarchy, you can do things that will help for a bit. Get money out of politics. Another one would be term limits in Congress, 4, 8 years. Another one would be ranked choice voting. Another one would be getting rid of all these ballot obstacles to get on a ballot. Another one would be equal time on media or whatever, mainstream media. So they couldn't do, 20, they give 23%, not 23%, 23 times as much coverage to Donald Trump as to Bernie Sanders in 2016. I don't know if anyone added up the 2020 numbers, but 23 times as much coverage. So you could have some sort of law saying media can't do that. They have to give equal and fair coverage. But again, none of these things are going to have a long-term lasting change on society, not the type of transformation we need. They would have an impact and it'd be an important impact. I don't want to say it wouldn't if you got rid of all money out of politics right now. They'd have an important impact, but it would eventually, the gravity of capitalism would be that the wealthy and the powerful, and isn't it funny how they're one and the same? Isn't that funny? How the wealthy and the powerful are the same? Isn't that odd? You think there'd be one guy that's like poor and powerful. But no, doesn't really work that way in this system, does it? Because if you get powerful and you're poor, then you get the money. And if you're rich, then you are by definition powerful. But anyway, there's ways to put little restrictions on it that would be helpful. But at the end of the day, we have to evolve as a species beyond the socioeconomic system of a market economy. We have to. It's the only way. But and I'm not saying I have all the answers, but at least we're having this discussion. There are short-term answers like mutual, short. They could be long. They could evolve into something long-term. But I'm just saying, short-term is in something you can do right now, which is you can help out at mutual aid. You can donate to mutual aid. You can go. It's not just mutual aid. Obviously, there's other places helping people in Texas right now, and there are other people in need in this country right now. So you can go help them, and there's ways to be helpful right now. That document again is at the top of my Twitter, at Lee Camp on Twitter. If you're in Texas and you need help, maybe you can find something in that doc. Again, I'm not saying that's the only resource. There are plenty of other resources out there. It's just one that I've seen being shared around. And you don't have to worry that someone will ask you whether you're a illegal immigrant or whether you, washed your bum hole today or whatever. They'll accept all who want who need help. I mean, you might want to consider washing, but it's not a requirement. All right, guys. If you want to follow my stuff, take 1 minute right now. Go over to Rokfin.com. You can sign up for free, or you can sign up for the premium, and that's $10 a month, and you get everybody's content, not just mine. You get Jimmy Dore and Graham Elwood and Ron Placone and all of them. So that's at ROKFIN.com/Lee Camp, Rokfin.com/Lee Camp. And let's see what else. We just did JFK assassination part 4 on government secrets. If you didn't see the JFK series, then it's going to blow your mind. You have to watch or listen to it. It is a podcast called Government Secrets. You can get it wherever you get your podcast for free. And it's also on YouTube, but maybe easiest to do the podcast listening on a long trip. Listen to the 4-part JFK series and learn who actually killed JFK. It's top secret government secret. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. And I hope everybody in Texas is pulling through all right. Keep fighting.